This is a 190 Q&A practice test. Plaintiff Attorney Mr. Bruce, capital B-R-U-C-E. Defense Attorney Ms. MS period Anton, capital A-N-T-O-N. And we'll start with Plaintiff Attorney. Ready? Here we go. Mr. Colley, how are you employed and assigned? I'm employed with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department at the Crime Lab as a criminalist in the trace evidence section. And what is trace evidence? My present duties are to analyze gunshot residue kits, fire debris samples, low explosives, to compare shoe and tire tread, and I'm also assisting in the narcotics section. Now, what specifically regarding gunshot residue, what education do you have in that field? Education-wise, I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in chemistry from UC Riverside. Okay, and have you done coursework in any other postgraduate type program? I have been to graduate school, yes. In what field? I was chemistry. What kind of chemistry? Just straight chemistry. You said chemistry. Okay, thank you. Yes. Do you have any specialized education and training in the field of being a criminalist? Yes. Would you briefly describe that for the jury? Within each of those disciplines that I do casework in, I've been trained by a criminalist in those disciplines, and I've also had classes outside the crime lab, just occasional classes or frequent classes. With regards to gunshot residue, the classes focused on the use of the instrument, the scanning electron microscope, the interpretation of the results, and that occurred within months of me beginning training in that area. And outside of that area, there's really nothing more to learn with the instrument, so I have not been to a class for GSR in many years. Okay, and GSR is gunshot residue, correct? Have you qualified as an expert in terms of testifying in court as an expert on gunshot residue? Yes. In connection with your duties, did you, in February of this year, did you examine some items with the lab number 12-12240? Yes. When you received these items, are they received in connection with a particular barcode? Yes. Each item of evidence will have its own barcode. Okay. And specifically, did you get some sort of a cardboard box containing clothing? Yes. And just to save time, was that cardboard box marked with barcode 124-200-2551? Yes, it was. Now, what was in that box specifically or generally? There were at least, go specifically. Could I look back at my notes? Would that refresh your recollection? It would. With the permission of the court, you may. Thank you. Specifically in that cardboard box, there was a pair of Sustanza brand jean shorts that I sampled. There was a dark blue Fruit of the Loom shirt that was a size extra large. There was a gray and blue plaid Synergy Studio by Morgan Cooper jacket that was a size extra large, and there was a pair of blue High Sierra brand shorts that were a size 44. Those were the 4 articles of clothing that I sampled. There were other items in that box as well. I believe there was underwear or some socks that I did not examine, so I did not describe those items. Okay, would you remember specifically the blue High Sierra brand shorts? If you were to see a photo of them, do you think you could identify if they were a pair of blue shorts specifically? No, unless I could see where I wrote the item designation and my initials and date on it. Okay, let's take it one by one. The pair of Sustanza brand jean shorts, correct? That was listed in your report as item K1, correct? Correct. The box itself is item K. Then each item I subdivide, so K1 was the first article of clothing that I found in there. Okay, and there was what was item K2? K2 was the Fruit of the Loom shirt. What was item K3? K3 was the plaid jacket. What was item K4? The High Sierra brand blue shorts. Now let's get a basic thing going here. What is gunshot residue? Gunshot residue is formed from the firing of a firearm. It's a specific mixture of elements that are only found from the firing of the firearm that will collect on whatever surface it falls onto. Okay, chemically, what is gunshot residue? The 3 elements that I look for are lead, barium, and antimony, and those components are found in a primer of a cartridge. What a lot of people think of as a bullet is actually termed a cartridge, and inside the bullet is what actually leaves the gun. So this cartridge has 2 types of powdered material. It has gunpowder and it has primer. The primer is a shock-sensitive mixture of chemicals. So when I pull the trigger, the hammer or the firing pin hits the base of this cartridge. That force causes the primer to burn. So just hitting the base of the case or the cartridge causes the primer to ignite and burn. When the primer ignites, it then burns the gunpowder, then the bullet will leave the gun. So I'm looking for components that are found in the primer, and that again is lead, barium, and antimony. Okay. And I take it there's a specific way to test whether lead, barium, and antimony are present in a sample. Yes. How do you do that? That's placed into a scanning electron microscope with energy dispersive spectroscopy. Thankfully, we just call it ASAM. Now, you obviously don't just take the whole, say, pair of pants and put them in the microscope, right? That is correct. How do you go about testing, say, a pair of some sort of clothing? The standard Gunshot residue kit contains 2 adhesive discs, and these discs are about the size of a dime, and they are in a plastic holder so that you can remove the disc, hold the top of it, and then dab the area that needs to be tested when it comes to clothing. Since I'm the one that is going to administer the test, I will take a disc, then dab the areas that I want to test. When it's a jacket or a shirt, I'm testing the areas toward the sleeves and the wrists, since when you perform a test on a person's hands, we are testing the web area of the index to the thumb. So I'm testing areas close to the hand. When it comes to shorts or pants, I'm focusing on the waistband, so I will do my dabbing on the wrist on one side and the same disc on the other side. So I'm only using 1 disc to sample each article of clothing, and after maybe a half of a dozen or a dozen dabs of that disc, it ceased being sticky. There's no amount of dabbing that will pick up any more material. So half a dozen to a dozen dabs will do you correct. It's no longer effective in picking up any more material. Okay, and then once you have this adhesive disc, what do you do with it? The disc itself will then get placed into the microscope, where I will set up an automated run where the instrument can take anywhere from 2 to 6 hours examining the entire surface of the disc. The microscope can capture images of these particles and tell me the elements or composition. So if it sees a particle that has lead, barium, antimony, it will capture the image. It will save its location. So when I come back after the run has been over, I have the instrument go back to that specific location on the disc. I look at the particle and re-examine it. Since the instrument is doing this in about a second as it's programming, I go back and reconfirm on all particles that it finds. Now, if gunshot residue is detected, what does that mean? If you are talking about somebody's hands, a positive result means that that individual has fired a firearm, has handled a firearm, was in close proximity to a discharging firearm, and that close proximity is around 0 to 12 feet from the edge of the barrel, or it contacted a surface that had gunshot residue. What about for clothing? Implied in that conclusion for an individual's hands is a time component. You have approximately about 6 hours for these particles to remain on somebody's hands before my expectation is that they are removed. When it comes to clothing, there hasn't been enough studies to show what the persistence of a gunshot residue particle on a sleeve of a jacket is. So when it comes to clothing, I will note that there are so many particles found, but then the conclusion, there really is no conclusion, since I don't know how long those particles can remain on that clothing. Okay, well, the presence of gunshot residue means, would it be fair to say that it means either that clothing was either worn by somebody who shot a gun? Yes. All right, the word list. We have Mr. Cauley, capital C-A-U-L-E-Y. Riverside, capital R-I-V-E-R-S-I-D-E. UC Riverside would just be capital U, capital C, and then Riverside, space Riverside. GSR, capital G, capital S, capital R, all caps, no periods, no spaces, GSR. Sostanza, capital S-O-S-T-A-N-Z-A. Fruit of the loom, capital F on fruit, small o on of, small t on the, capital L on loom. Loom is L-O-O-M. Fruit of the loom. Synergy Studio, capital S-Y-N-E-R-G-Y, new word, capital S-T-U-D-I-O, Synergy Studio. Morgan Cooper, capital M-O-R-G-A-N, new word, capital C-O-O-P-E-R. High Sierra, capital H-I-G-H, new word, capital S-I-E-R-R-A. And then we have an acronym, A-S-A-M is capital A, capital S, capital A, capital M, all caps, no periods, no spaces. And that is it for the word list, and that will conclude our 190 Q&A practice test.